Okay, so I forgot to upload the blank midterm exam to Moodle. So there's nothing to look at on the screen. We're just going to look at the exam in your hand. If you don't have your midterm exam in your hand, it's here. So please come take it. Line 1, the mistake is the last two words, being, waiting. Most of you caught this, but not everyone fixed it correctly. The problem here is that this should be a participial construction, 分词构句. In other words, the same subject as the first half is the same subject as the second half. The subject is we. So what are we doing? We are waiting. Therefore, you don't need the being. So it should just go from house, comma, waiting. No being. Line 2. The mistake is in the that. Just as I imagined it from Sherlock Holmes's description. Know that. The preposition from takes an object. The word description is enough. This is not a noun phrase, noun clause. You don't need the word that. The word that is not doing anything here. Number 3, line 3. This is a bit more complicated. So in this quotation, the problem is the word makes. The sentence that Holmes says is, her marriage makes things easy. So this is the quotation without a speech tag. In the sentence, the speech tag is added here. So this is the correct form. You are simply inserting the speech tag into the middle. I skipped a lot of stuff in the actual sentence, but this is the basic structure. Said Holmes, etc. I'm skipping a lot of stuff. Now, I did accept another answer. And the other answer I accepted is if you corrected the second half like this. Right? If instead of just changing it to a lowercase m, you added the word it. This is not as good an answer, but it is still acceptable in this interpretation. Holmes is saying two sentences. The first sentence is her marriage, like her marriage. That's it. It's not a complete sentence, but that's fine. Sometimes we don't talk in complete sentences. But if we do talk in complete sentences, it should be grammatical. Line 4. The question is where we can find the photograph is correct. It's the ending. It should not be a question mark. It should be a period. The question is where we can find the photograph. Is this a question? No, this is not a question. This could be a question, but this is not a question. This is a statement. If I said, hey, what's the question? This could be your answer. Therefore, this is not a question. So the ending should be a period inside quotation marks. Now, I accepted another answer, which is if you presented it as a question. So in this case, you are separating this sentence into two parts. You are presenting the question in its original form. And so if it's a question, it should be can we, not we can. In order to use this answer, you have to have both parts. You have to have the colon or the em dash, and you have to reverse the subject and the auxiliary verb. These are the only two answers that I accepted. Number 5, kill the comma. We don't need the comma. The rule is if the quotation ends in a period, change it to a comma if it's not the end of the sentence, if there's a speech tag after the quotation. But for any other kind of punctuation mark, you don't need to add another comma. It's changing a period to a comma. It's not adding a comma to anything. There's only one use case for the comma in this kind of sentence. Number 6, we can trust the fact that. The phrase is the fact that. You need all 3 words. I did accept some other answers. I accepted it if you added that and then you deleted the fact. So if your answer was, we can trust that she does not, I also accepted them. Number 7, in that case, comma. The sentence begins with the word where. Where should we look? That's the complete sentence. In that case is part of everything else. In this case, condition. So in that case, comma. I also accepted another answer if you moved in that case to the back of the sentence. If your answer was, where should we look in that case? I also accepted this. Number 8. If you didn't catch this, shame on you. I do not believe that. So I hope everyone noticed that this is wrong. I accepted a few corrections. I do not, I cannot, although cannot should be one word. I remember one person said cannot, but used 2 words. Cannot should be one word. I, let's see. Would not, I think I accepted would not. I think I also accepted could not. I did not accept am not. Am not is wrong. Am is a be verb, which means after the be verb, you either have a noun or an adjective. Except is a verb, doesn't fit. So am not is wrong. Therefore, was not is also wrong. And I also did not accept should not. Sorry, after the not is believe. Believe is a verb, same thing. I also did not accept should not. Because in this case, the should most likely means supposed to, and that doesn't make sense in this context. Number 9, should she? The sentence, it's a question, so it should be, why should she hand it to someone else? If it's a question, we have to move the first auxiliary verb to the front, in front of the subject. Finally, number 10, I think most of you found that you found the mistake, but not everyone corrected it in the right way. I accepted 2 answers. So the quotation is a sentence. The quotation should end with a period, but it's not the end of the entire sentence because you then have a speech tag after it. So this period should be a comma inside the quotation mark. Some of you put it outside the quotation mark. This is the correct answer. Inside the quotation mark. However, I also gave you points if you used this answer, because this means you deleted the entire speech tag. The sentence ends here. That also would make sense. These are the only two answers that I accepted. Okay. Do you have questions about the midterm? Are there other parts of this short story that you want to ask me about? Okay, so this midterm exam, one person got a full score. One person got a full score after some technical addition. So like on your exam paper, if you see green pen ink giving you more points, that is because you answered questions correctly in class. All right, every correct answer gave you an extra point. For some of you, that helped you pass. So it's very important to come to class and try to answer questions. Okay, no more questions about this? If not, we're going to begin the second half of the semester. Yes. So the first half of the semester, we looked at stuff inside a single sentence, right? We talked about additional parts of a sentence. We talked about questions, different kinds. We talked about moving things around. In the second half of the semester, we're going to be talking about combining sentences. You have two sentences, and how do you put them together? For the next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about relative pronouns and relative clauses, 关系子句跟关系代名词. And as I'm sure you've all suffered through this in high school, you know we need 2 weeks. Relative clauses are hard for Chinese speakers because Chinese doesn't have them. But Chinese does have a similar kind of thing, because you see, a relative clause describes a noun. It is a description. In grammar, it is actually an adjectival clause. It functions like an adjective. Earlier, we learned about noun clauses, a sentence that functions like a noun. Here, we're going to be talking about a sentence that functions like an adjective. So let me show you what I mean. What's going on here? This is the exam that I barely passed. In English, when we see this, we know this is a relative clause. In Chinese, we would say, 这是我勉强及格的考试. Right? So you see that part in the middle, 勉强及格的. It's an adjective. It describes the noun, the exam. What kind of exam? The exam that I barely passed. So if you're a native speaker of Chinese, that's how you can think about relative clauses. They are a sentence that describes something. So hopefully that will help you wrap your mind around what this is. So in this case, we have combined two sentences. This is an exam. That's a sentence. I barely passed that exam. That's the second sentence. So let me break it down for you. One, this is an exam. 2, I barely passed. Right? So 2 sentences, and we have combined them into one sentence. And they can be combined like this because they both use the same noun. they are both talking about the same thing. So we join them together using the place where they talk about the same thing. It's like Legos, right? You put them together based on the connecting point. Or it's like a door hinge, 门栓, right? You have the wall, you have the door frame, you have the door, and they're connected using one word. I don't know if that helps you, but that's how we put them together. So how do we put these two sentences together? Choose one sentence as your main sentence, and then the other sentence will be your relative clause. It will be used to describe the thing that connects these two sentences. So in this case, the main sentence will be one. So therefore, we're going to be putting two into one. So one is our main sentence. Okay, so how do we do this? We start by writing out your main sentence. This is an exam. Okay, when you reach the word that is shared between the two sentences, then you jump to the second sentence and you repeat the same word, right? It's the exam. And then you finish writing out the rest of the second sentence. And then you finish writing out the rest of the first sentence. Finally, this is repeated. So change one of them into a relative pronoun. English has two relative pronouns, that and which. In this case, we're going to use that. I'll talk about this later. And then clean up the grammar a little bit. It's the because you have a specific exam. Which exam? This exam. When you describe it, it becomes specific, so you use the. So that's how you create a sentence with a relative clause. Let's do another one. Someone give me a noun. 给我一个名词。Death. Death? Death. Death. Great. Love death. Okay, so first sentence. Everyone is afraid of death. Second sentence. No one can escape death. Except maybe one person, but we're not talking about him. Okay, so these two sentences have the same noun, right? Death. So we can use this same word to join the two sentences together. Now, which sentence should be our main sentence? For this example, let's choose number one as our main sentence. So we're going to put sentence two into sentence one. So we begin by writing out sentence one, our main sentence. Everyone is afraid of death. Okay, when we reach the noun that is repeated, we now jump to the sentence that we are putting in. So that's sentence two. So we repeat that noun, and then we write out the rest of sentence two. And then we write out the rest of sentence one. Finally, we don't need to repeat it twice, so we change the second one to a relative pronoun. In this case, I'm going to use which. And because there is only one there is only one kind of concept called death, we need to add this comma. I'll talk about this later. But for now, this is how we get a sentence with a relative clause. For this sentence, we can also put the first sentence inside the second sentence. Let's try that. Let's put one into two. So what's the first thing we do? What's the first step? we write out the main sentence. In this case, the main sentence is no one, okay, the second one, good. No one can escape death. Okay, and we have reached the repeated word. What's the next step? What do we do next? We write out, we jump to the other sentence and we write down the repeated word. Now what? We finish writing down the other sentence. And then we go back to the main sentence and we finish that one. Last step. Change the repeated word into a relative pronoun. In this case, we're going to use which. Ta-da! Completed sentence. This is not a good sentence. We're going to talk about why next week, but it's basically correct. Follow the formula, you get a relative clause. Okay, so that's the basic concept. So far, so good? Raise your hand if you understand. 听懂举手. Okay, good. So now we're going to add some more stuff. As I said, there are two words we can use, right? That or which. There are specific limitations on each word. So I'm going to show you the very simple way to choose. If your relative pronoun could be anything until it is limited by this, right? If the original sentence is, this is an exam. Which exam? Who the fuck knows? There are so many exams we have to take. Only when we get to the second sentence do we know, oh, you're talking about that exam. In this case, we use that. But if it's death, which death are we talking? Like, which idea of death are we talking about? It doesn't matter. There's only one idea of death, right? Death is just you're not alive. It doesn't matter if you're talking about like me, my dog, or my ex-girlfriend. Let's not think about my ex-girlfriend in this way. But like, it doesn't matter. The idea of death, there's only one idea. So whether you have the second half or not, it doesn't change the meaning of your keyword. In this case, we use which, and we add the comma here. So if you need that relative clause to help you understand what you're talking about, use that. If you don't need it, it's just extra information, add a comma and use which. This is extra information. That's why there's a comma, right? We can, in fact, continue this sentence. No one can escape death, which everyone is afraid of, except for maybe one person, but he's not here with us right now. Okay, that might be a bit controversial. So we can see that if you take out this part, the grammar doesn't change. The sentence continues. It is extra information. And as we mentioned very early in the semester, if you insert extra information, you surround it with commas to tell the reader that this is extra information. It is not essential to the grammar. In fact, it is not essential, right? If we take this out, we still know what we're talking about. It doesn't change the meaning of that word. And that's why we have a comma. Now, that's the basic rule. If you need that relative clause to define your meaning, use that. If you don't need that relative clause to define your meaning, use which and add a comma. But that's not the exact rule. That's just a way to help you remember. The exact rule is you cannot add a comma before that. This is a very abstract rule. It's hard to remember. So instead, I've given you the concept. And if you follow the concepts, you will never make a mistake in this part. But if you follow that concept, you might get a bit confused if you run into a sentence like this. Remember, the specific rule is no comma before that. So is this sentence correct? It's correct, but it's confusing. So that's not what I'm teaching you. Right? If there's no comma, just use that. But you do have to know the actual rule so that when you read and you come across the word which without a comma, you won't get too confused. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about like how to do this kind of thing, but why? Why do we need to know this? We have two perfectly good sentences. Why don't we just say the two sentences? Why do we have to put them together? And the answer is you don't. When you're writing, you can choose to just use two sentences. But when you're reading, most English texts will put them together. Relative clauses are extremely common in English writing. Extremely common. So even if you don't want to write them, you must learn how to read them. And they're extremely common because the structure is complicated, but if you're learning a language from birth, you're not learning grammar, right? You're just listening to people talk, you're listening to your parents talk, and you're repeating what they say. So it doesn't matter if the structure is simple or complex. If it's common, you're going to learn it. And that's why native speakers of English and also most other Western languages and Japanese all have relative clauses. Chinese is kind of the exception here. Which means that for this small unit, all of your non-Taiwanese friends will have a slight advantage over you. Work harder. Questions so far? Okay, one more concept for today. In these examples, the sentences have always ended with our joining word. But it doesn't have to end here. Sometimes your joining word will appear in the middle of the sentence as well. Sometimes it might appear at the beginning of the sentence. I should say one more thing. If your joining word is a person, you can use who. If it's a person, you can use who or that, but not which. Which is only for objects. Okay, so now we can do a person example. I really admire John. John hates me intensely. Poor guy. Okay, so if these are your two sentences, let's do a short review. Let's put number 2 into number 1. So this is what we have been doing so far. What's the first step? Yes, write down the main sentence. 2 into 1, 1 is the main sentence. I really admire John. Okay, we have hit on the repeated word. What's the next step? Repeat the word, right? What's next? Finish the inserted sentence. In this case, number 2. So we have written down John hates me intensely. What's next? Go back to the main sentence and finish it. Last step. Change the second repeated word into a relative pronoun. In this case, it's a person, so you can use who or that. Let's use who. Now, how many Johns are in this situation? 1 John, right? So we do need to add the comma. It doesn't matter if we have this part or not. We know who we're talking about. That's the guy. It doesn't change the meaning. So in this case, we have to add the comma. So that's what happens when you put 2 into 1. Now let's put 1 into 2. And this is the new thing. But if you follow the same rules, you will get the same correct result. Okay, so first step, what do we do? Write down the main sentence, right? Okay, John. Oh, wait, but that's immediately the word that repeats. So what's the next step? We jump to the other sentence, write down the repeated word, and then we finish that sentence. And then we come back to the main sentence and we finish that. Finally, we change this into a relative pronoun. If you have 1 comma, you have 2 commas. Ta-da! Questions? Let's do another one, just for practice. Someone gives me a noun. You said desk earlier, right? All right, great. So the editor's desk is very far away. That's our first sentence. Our second sentence is I often have to place papers on the editor's desk. Actually, no, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do a fun one. It's very far away. The editor's desk is very short. Let's add an also there. Okay, so that's our 2 sentences. Let's put 1 into 2. So first step, write out. We should for consistency do 2 into 1. Okay, first step, write out the main sentence. The editor's desk, and that's the repeated word. So we go to the second one. The repeated word, it's a noun, right? We're talking about pronouns. That means so we just have to repeat the noun, desk. And then we finish the second sentence is also very short. And then we go back to the first sentence is very far away. And then we make some adjustments, right? We know there's only 1 desk, the editor's desk. That's just 1. There's no confusion. So this should be quick. Comma, comma. And then the also doesn't make sense here. Let's move the also to be here. There we go. The editor's desk, which is very short, is also very far away. Make sense so far? Okay, now let's put 1 into 2. Okay, so 2 is the main sentence, the editor's desk, and then we jump to 1, desk is very far away. Go back to 2, is also very short, and then we make some adjustments. Okay. Questions? Okay, if you don't have questions, that's the basic concept for today. Now we can do some practice. So please go to your handout. Your brand new handout. Page 2. The first set of questions is simply asking you, do you need a comma or two commas, right? Commas or no commas. If you need at least one comma, circle yes, and then put them into the sentence. If you don't need commas, circle no. 14 questions. I'll give you 3 minutes. 4 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm very kind. Oh, we're gonna hit a break. Let's take a break and we'll compare answers when we come back. Number 3, Answering. Question 3, do we need commas? Yes, we do. Where? Oh, first, okay. First one. Before which? Is that what you said? Did you say Bogota, comma, which? Okay. And do we need another one? Before is. Good. So the correct answer is Bogota, comma, which is the capital of Colombia, comma, is a cosmopolitan city. Good. Now, some of you might have a little trouble figuring out where the relative clause ends. So let me give you a tip. In this sentence, the relative clause begins right after the subject, right? Pagoda, comma, and then the relative clause. Which means after the relative clause ends, the next thing should be the verb, right? Subject, verb, object, right? So subject, relative clause, the next thing should be the verb, the main verb. So when you reach the main verb, is. It's not this one, because this is obviously part of the relative clause. You just began. This cannot be the main verb. So keep going, keep going. Another verb. This is probably the main verb. So when you reach the main verb, you know that the relative clause has ended. So in this case, that's where you put the comma. Number 4, Huang Guizhi. Do we need commas? No, we don't. Because the city that is, so we're talking about a city. It could be any city. The reason it says the city is because we have a relative clause to help us understand which city. But without that relative clause, it could be any city. So we don't need commas here. Good. Now you might see another comma in the sentence. This comma replaces the word and. If you have two adjectives that are the same kind of adjective, or the order is incorrect, you can use and, or you can use a comma, but that is not related to today's unit. Number 5, 李增文. Number 5, do we need commas? Yes, we do. How many? 2, and where do we put them? Well, we already have commas. Do we need to add more commas? Okay, South Beach, comma, and then the other one? Okay, so South Beach, comma, so we have begun the relative clause, which is clean, pleasant, and fun is known as a party town. So the question is, where does it end? Yes, after fun. Good. So South Beach, comma, which is clean, pleasant, and fun, comma, is known as a party town. I'm going to give you that one. I don't think I gave you any actual hints. Number 6, Wang Dingyu. Number 6, do we need commas? Are you sure? Okay, look, so it says the name Bogota comes from the word Bacata, which was, so the relative clause begins here, right? How many words called Bogota do we have? Just one, right? So if there's only one, we can take out this second half and it would not change the meaning of the first half. So it's extra information, right? If it's extra information, you need to add a comma to tell the reader this is extra information. So the correct answer is the name Pagoda comes from the word Bagada, comma, which was the Indian name for the site. Okay. All right. Number 7. Chen Guanyao. Number 7, please. Do we need commas? Good, we don't. The person could be anybody. So we need the relative clause to tell us which person or which kind of person. So this is essential information. So we do not add commas. The person and then the relative clause is who writes the best essay, and main verb is will win, object is a prize. Good. Number 8. Saya. Is Saya still here? Number 8, please. Do we need commas? Okay. It's given to Belinda Jones, who wrote. How many Belinda Jones do we have? Just one, right? So if it's only one, even if we take out the relative clause, we still understand the first half perfectly. We know who we're talking about. So the second half is extra information, right? If it doesn't change the meaning of our main word, then it's extra information. If it's extra information, we add a comma to tell the reader that this is extra information. So the correct answer is the first prize was given to Belinda Jones, comma, who wrote a touching essay about being an adopted child. Okay? All right. Number 9. Wang Zitian. Wang Zitian还在吗？ She ran away. Okay. Liu Yuan. Number 9, please. Yes. Where? In front of which? So we visited Nairobi, comma, which? Good. Do we need another one? After reserves? Good. That is correct. So on our trip to Africa, we visited Nairobi, comma, which is near several fascinating game reserves, comma, because that's the end of your relative clause. You have finished describing Nairobi, and then travel to Egypt to see the pyramids. Good. Now, some of you might have noticed that we actually need a third comma on our trip to Africa, comma, right? The sentence begins with we. So you need the comma to tell the reader, hey, this is not actually the beginning of the sentence yet. But that is not related to today's unit, so I'm not counting that. But you should know you should add a comma there. Number 10. I think I finished calling everyone I want to call. Zhang Lingzhen, number 10, please. Do we need commas? No, we don't. It says fly to a city. Which city? No idea. We need that relative clause to tell us which city. We need it. It is essential. It is not extra. No comma. Good. Number 11, Lianzhen. No commas. Good. Because it says someone. Who? I don't fucking know. We need that middle part. So no commas. Where does the relative clause end? Who understands physics better? Do here? Okay, correct. So someone is the subject, is the main verb. So the middle part is the relative clause. Number 12. Evian. Number 12, do we need commas? No, we don't, because it says tropical storms, many of them. And we need the second half to tell us which ones we're talking about. Good. So any kind of violent tropical storms? No, no, no. Only the ones in Western Asia. Good. "13, Wang Ziyun. Wang Ziyun 还在吗? Or I don't think she actually came today. What else we got? 不言数, number 13. Do we need commas? Sorry, 14. No, no, no. Yeah, 13. They're all about typhoons. Okay, 13. No, we don't. Same reason as number 12. Many kinds of storms. Which one? We need the middle part to tell us. Good. 14. Okay. 14, 将近. Commas? It's a trick question. We actually do need commas. I know it says a typhoon, but which is a violent tropical storm? Does that middle part change the meaning of the word typhoon? It doesn't, right? The word typhoon is already a violent tropical storm. It doesn't change the meaning. Therefore, it is extra information. Right? Therefore, we need commas. A typhoon, comma, which is a violent tropical storm, comma, can cause great destruction. This brings us to a very interesting grammar fact I want to share with you. If your relative clause is extra information and your main verb inside the clause is a be verb. In other words, if you have comma which is, you can omit the which is. So if you say a typhoon, comma, a violent tropical storm, comma, can cause great destruction, this is also correct. And in this case, the grammar, the name of the grammar changes. If you take out the which is, it is not a relative clause, it is an appositive. A positive in Chinese, 同位语, means that on the left of the comma and on the right of the comma are the exact same thing. A typhoon just is a violent tropical storm. So small change, different grammar name, but the sentence still works. So again, in an appositive, the comma is actually an equal sign. 它等于是一个等号. On the left, it means the same thing as on the right. Okay, back to practice. Number 15. 同念词. 15, please. Do we need commas? We do? We don't? We don't. Okay, yes. Because the typhoon, like, could be any typhoon. We need the relative clause to tell us which typhoon. And it's the one that almost struck Indonesia. So no commas. Good. And number 16, 郑慧宇. Do we need commas? Yes, we do. Before which, do we need another one? After Orleans. Good. So Hurricane Katrina, comma, which destroyed parts of New Orleans, comma, occurred in 2005. Yes, because the hurricane is named. There's only one such hurricane. So the extra information doesn't change the meaning of our noun. Therefore, we do need commas. Good job. Okay, questions about this page? Yes. Number 14. Yes. If you take out the which is, it becomes a positive. If you keep the which is, it's a relative clause. Good, thank you. Other questions about this page? All right, if not, let's keep going. The next one is kind of boring. Let's do another one. Next page. Did I forget to tell you something? That's kind of funny. Okay, so yes, there is one more thing I should tell you about relative clauses. Let's see. Okay, we need a new sentence. Someone give me a noun, please. The other means hair. Why not? Okay, so first sentence. He likes a certain kind of hairstyle. 2. The girl was wearing that hairstyle. Okay, so spelled wearing wrong. Let's put 2 into 1. Sorry, 1 into 2. Okay, so main sentence is the second one. The girl was wearing the hairstyle. And then going back to sentence 1, hairstyle. He likes a certain kind of end. Now, we change this to that, and then we don't really need this part, right? It's that hairstyle. So we already know what kind. We don't need to say a certain kind. Okay, so this is a sentence that should look familiar to you. Here's what I'm going to say. If your inserted sentence, so in this case, this one, in this case, sentence 1, if the sentence that you are putting into the main sentence, if your relative clause, first of all, uses that, so no commas, and then secondly, is the object. Subject he, verb likes, object hairstyle. If it is the object, and it uses that, no commas, you can take out the that. So if we reversed it, if we put 2 into 1, it would not work because actually, no, it would work. We have a great sentence. Okay, so we could do that. Okay, so let's do that again. So 2 into 1. So he likes the kind of hairstyle the girl was wearing. Boom. Change this to that. Okay, so yes, it uses that, no commas, and it is the object. So we can take out the that. Questions? Okay, so again, must be the object, no commas. And then you can take out the that. Now that we know this, you can do the questions on the bottom of page 3. These 4 questions. Insert who if you must. So no, like remember who, you could use commas, you can use no commas. As long as it's a person, it works either way. So if it's the object and you don't need commas, do not put in who. 4 questions, I'll give you 3 minutes. Okay, let's compare answers. Did you guys notice something strange? It's a trick question. All of them need who. There are no sentences where you can take out the word who. All of them you need to put it in. So number two, I like the people who sat next to us, right? Because people sit next to us. People is the subject. So you need to add who. Number three, people who paint houses. Very clear, the word people is the subject. You need to put it in. Number four, I'm uncomfortable around married couples who argue all the time. Couples argue, subject, verb. You need to add the who. Number five, while I was waiting at the bus stop, I stood next to an elderly gentleman who started a conversation, right? The gentleman started, subject, verb. You need to add who in every sentence. But you have to think about it each time. That's the purpose. Number two, there might be an exception if you're British. In American English, the word sit does not have a passive, 没有被动. But in British English, there is. In British English, you yourself can sit, or you can, in American English, we would say you can put someone in a chair or something. In British English, the word put in that case, you could also use a passive sit. So you can say, I liked the people who were sat next to us at the soccer game. That works in British English, but not in American English. Questions about this part? All right, next page. Sorry about the printing. The left side was kind of cut off a little bit. I actually don't know how to solve that problem. I know how to solve the right side. I don't know how to solve the left side. So we're just going to have to deal with it. In this paragraph, there are 5 mistakes related to stuff we are talking about today. Find them and fix them. I'll give you 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes. Horan. First line, line 1. Are there any mistakes? Okay, took a personality test. The who is wrong. And you said which. Do you want to add commas? No, good. It is a test. What is the test supposed to do? We need the relative clause to tell us what kind of test this is specifically. So the best answer is personality test that is. You can also say which is, or you can just take out 2 words. We took a personality test designed to. So you have 3 choices here. Wang Liting. Yes. Second line. Are there mistakes? Ah, okay. So the relative clause is the test that I found interesting. The rule is you cannot add a comma before that. So this is wrong. How do we fix it? In this case, when it says the test, do we know which test? Well, if it's just this sentence, we don't, but it's part of the paragraph. It's the same test that we were talking about in the first sentence. So in fact, at this point, we do know which test. It is that test. There's only one test. So we should keep the commas and change that into which. The test, comma, which I found interesting, comma. Sanson. Line 3. Are there mistakes? Where do we put the which? Whose. Okay, so whose is wrong. Whose we're going to talk about next week. Whose is of which, or of a person, of whom or of which. We're going to talk about that next week, but it's wrong here. I got my results and the results were pretty much blah, blah, blah. So you're changing it to which. Good, because when it says my results, we already know what results. There are only one set of results that it could be my results. So it's extra information. Extra information, we keep the comma and therefore we use which. Good. Next line, Yang Peizhen. No. Wang Luring. No. Liu Yixing. Still no. Wang Yijia. Yes. Next line. Mistakes. Whom. And it should be who. Good. You may have guessed because I didn't talk about whom. So if I give you a whom question, it's probably wrong. We're going to talk about this next week. Whom is only used when the sentence you put into the main sentence, the person is the object. We actually had this kind of sentence today. This one, right? I admire John. John is the object. So if John is the object, this should be whom. We're going to talk about this next week. But this is just so you know. So in this case, I have many friends. My friends mean a lot. Friends mean a lot. Friends is the subject. So it should be who. Good. Oh, Yingjia, question. Do we add commas? Trick question. Either way works. Different interpretations, but both interpretations could make sense. I have many friends who mean a lot to me means that I also have some friends who don't mean a lot to me. And I need this part to tell you which friends I'm talking about. But if you do add a comma, that means you have many friends, and all of these friends mean a lot to you. They're the same group of friends. So if you take out this part, you are still talking about the same group of friends. It becomes extra information. So it's two different interpretations that in this case could work. Both of them could work. Fun fact, when I was taking the college entrance exams and I was writing my English composition, I used the relative clause. I thought I don't need commas. The reader, the person giving the grade, thought I do need commas. 2 points. I still think I'm right. We're missing one more, right? Oh, okay, I see it, I see it. Okay, it's here. This line also has a mistake. Everyone who wants to find out. Who wants? Subject, verb. This is a subject. You cannot omit the subject. Everyone who wants to find out. You can also say that, right? If it's a person, you can say who, or you can say that. Questions about this part? All right, homework. Go back to the previous page and finish the first half, and then finish this page as well. So please finish everything up to the end of page 4. So do this part, and then also go back, and we skipped this part. Please do this part also. All right, and then next week, we're going to continue talking about relative clauses.